Disclaimer.
A pleasant day to each and everyone. For this video, we will be discussing taxation law. Here are the topics that we will be discussing in this video. Let's get started. First is the definition of taxation law. When we say taxation law, this refers to the public authority who has a claim on taxpayers, requiring them to transfer to the authorities part of their income or properties. The power to impose taxes are generally recognized as right of the governments. Tax law in the Philippines covers national and local taxes. National taxes refer to the national internal revenue taxes, which is imposed by the national government and collected by the Bureau of Internal Revenue, while the local taxes are imposed and collected by the local government.
Purpose of taxation. The primary goal of taxation is to raise funds or generate revenues to cover government expenses for promoting the general welfare of its citizens. It also serves to provide funds or property with which to promote the general welfare of its citizens and enable government to finance its various activities. Secondary objective of taxation is to support dynamic firms by providing tax breaks as well as to protect local industries from international competition by imposing high import tariffs.
Principle of taxation. Taxation principle are the guidelines that a governing entity should use when devising a system of taxation. This principle include the following item. Broad application. Broad meaning is covering a large and wide scope of subject or areas. And application is the action of putting something into operation. The tax system should be applied into a widest possible population, ensuring that no single individual or company is overtaxed. Instead, the tax burden is shared by the entire population. Broad tax usage. Only when there is a clear cause and effect relationship between the tax and the use are tax target toward that use. Tax are collected for general in all other situations. Special interest will gain preferential funding if this does not happen. Ace of a compliance. The administration of taxation should be straightforward as possible, so that the taxpayer has a little difficulty meeting the tax payment obligation. The taxation procedure should, in theory, be visible to the taxpayer. Ace of taxpayer compliance refers to the taxpayer ability to understand the tax code and pay the taxes.
Expenditure matching. What is expenditure matching? Expenditure means the action of spending funds. It is a level of taxes that should roughly correspond to the amount of planned expenditures, ensuring that the governing organization covers its costs prudently while not taxing excessively. Fairness in application. All taxpayers in the same economic circumstances should be subjected to the same form of tax. Furthermore, the tax should not favor one group over another, enriching one at the expense of the other. We must adhere to the principle of relying on the people, taking the safeguarding of people's basic rights, in order to ensure that people enjoy extensive rights and freedom and assume corresponding responsibilities. Limited exemption. Limited exemption should be granted for a specific period of time and for a specific purpose, after which they should be abolished. This exemption exists exclusively to encourage specific types of behavior, the majority of which are tied to economic development. Example, the hotel industry by the contract of partnership or more persons by themselves to contribute money, property, or industry to a common fund with the intention of dividing the profits among themselves.
For the last two principles of taxation, we have low collection cost and understandability. For low collection cost, a collection cost is the expense of collecting an owing debt, which is referred to as debt collection. This could include the cost of employing a collection firm. Liquidated damages for collection fees are required by some contracts and legislation. When collection charges arise, the debtor must pay up the debt in order for the collector to be released from the collection fees. The cost of collecting taxes should be as low as possible so that the net receipts are as high as possible. A tax is ineffective if it is not cost-effective. And for understandability, what does understandability mean? The concept of understandability refers to the presentation of financial data in such a way that a reader may easily comprehend it. A taxpayer should be able to understand how to calculate and pay a tax. Otherwise, the tax amount remitted could be wrong. An example of it in one establishment, the restaurant. The one who pays tax for the restaurant should understand and know how he or she calculate and also pay the tax. Because if it's not, then there would be a problem. And if there is a part that the taxpayer can understand, he or she can ask for a help.
Let's now move on to the doctrines of taxation. The first one is the Lifeblood Doctrine. Taxes are the lifeblood of the government and should be collected without unnecessary hindrance. It is said that taxes are what we pay for civilized society. For instance, without revenue raised from taxation, the government will not survive, resulting in detriment to society. Without taxes, the government would be paralyzed for lack of motive power to activate and operate it. The next one is the necessity theory. This means that the power of taxation proceeds upon theory that the existence of government is a necessity. That is, cannot continue without means that it has the right to compel all citizens and property within its limit to contribute. To set an example, without taxes, the government cannot fulfill its mandate of promoting the general welfare and well-being of people.
The benefits received principle, which is a theory of income tax fairness that says people should pay taxes based on the benefits they receive from the government. A tax provision that says a donor who receives a tangible benefit from making a charitable contribution must subtract the value of the benefit from the amount claimed as income tax deduction. Symbiotic relationship doctrine. It involves the power of the state to demand and receive taxes based on the reciprocal duties of support and protection between the states and citizens. The basis of taxation is the reciprocal duty of protection between the states and its inhabitants. In return for the contributions, the taxpayer receives the general advantages and protections which the government affords the taxpayer and his property.
Forms of taxation in tourism. Taxation in tourism is either directly levied on tourists or on the user businesses themselves. Tourists are welcome with different taxes such as the entry and exit taxes, consumption taxes, environmental taxes, and duties in the import of equipment. These taxes are encountered from the moment a tourist enters and leaves another country, and from their purchases during their stay, such as the accommodation, restaurant meals, souvenirs, and admission fees to any tourist spot available. The forms of taxation in tourism are directly charged to tourists and directly charged to user businesses. Here are the examples of taxes that is directly charged to tourists. We have the arrival and departure taxes such as the visas and travel permits. Next is the travel tax, which is the air passenger duty, car rental tax, and fuel tax. Next is the accommodation, which is the bed night tax. Next is the environmental tax, which is the eco tax levied on arrival and departure. We also have the
expenditure tax, which is the VAT on restaurant meals. Well, here are the examples of taxes that is directly charged to user businesses. We have the land and property tax, we have the import duties on tourism inputs, we have the corporation tax, we have the transportation tax, which is the road tax, and lastly, we also have the environment tax.
Here are the scenarios for the taxation in tourism. The first one, for taxes directly charged to tourists. Example is arrival and departure taxes. The scenario for this, Sandro and Aika are planning to travel to US. For them to enter the country, they need to pay such fees like customer user fee, immigration fee, terminal fee, and so on. Next is for taxes directly charged to user business. The example for this, land and property taxes. The scenario, the girlfriend of my brother owns lot of hotel in Boracay. In order for her to continue her business at that area, she is paying yearly taxes on her hotels.
An income tax is a tax imposed on individuals or entities in respect of the income or profits earned by them. Income tax generally is computed as the product of a tax times the taxable income. Taxation rates may vary by the type of characteristic of a taxpayer and the type of income. Tourism is so sensitive to taxes because taxes will have a great impact on prices. But tourism cannot be exempt from those since it's a significant source of revenue for the budget. Local or national government should. A part of the tax revenues to use in order to increase and improve tourism infrastructure. This affects since adequate tourism facilities and infrastructure need to be provided for the growth of tourism industry. Thus, the travel tax plays an important role in funding the development, maintenance of those tourism facilities to enhance the country's competitiveness as the major tourist destination. However, in tourism tax hikes or hotels, restaurants, or air passenger travel bump up prices of destination, causing tourists to shy away. This in turn potentially leads to less spending of tourists on tourism-related services.
A corporate tax is a tax imposed on companies' profit. Taxes are levied on companies' taxable income, which comprises revenue less cost of goods unsold (COGS), general and administrative (G&A) expenses, selling and marketing, R&D, depreciation, and other operating costs. Corporate tax rates differ greatly by country, with certain countries being regarded as offshore funds due to their low rates because different deductions, government subsidies, tax loopholes can reduce corporate taxes. The effective corporate tax rate or the rate a corporation pays is usually lower than the statutory rate or the rate a corporation pays before any deduction. A central issue relating to corporate taxation is the concept of double taxation. Certain corporations are taxed on the taxable income of the company. If this net income is distributed to shareholders, these individuals are forced to pay individual income taxes on the dividends received. Corporate tax deduction. Corporations are allowed to deduct certain essentials and regular business expenses from their taxable income. All current operating expenses for the business are fully tax deductible. Purchases of property and real estate with the intention of creating income for the business are also deductible.
The travel tax is a levy imposed by the Philippine government on individuals who are leaving the country, irrespective of the place where the ticket is issued and the form or place of payment as provided by the Presidential Decree 1183 as amended. Pursuant to Section 73 of Republic Act 9593, 50% of the proceeds of the travel tax go to TIEZA and 40% shall go to CHED, Commission on Higher Education, for tourism-related programs and educational courses, and 10% shall accrue to the National Commission of Culture and Arts, or NCCA. In addition to travel tax, there are people who pays the full travel tax. 1 is the citizen of the Philippines, 2 taxable foreign passport holders, and lastly 3 non-immigrant foreign passports that have stayed in the Philippines for more than 1 year. And another requirement for having a travel tax is an original passport and an airline ticket. And full travel tax ranges from first class to economy class. First class being 2,700 pesos and economy class ranges up to 1,620 pesos.
Value-added tax, or VAT, is a consumption tax on goods and services that is levied at each stage of the supply chain where value is added. From initial production to the point of sale, the amount of VAT that user pay is based on the cost of the product, minus any cost of the materials in the product that had already been taxed. Value-added tax is added to a product at every point of the supply chain. Advocate of VAT claims that they raise government revenues without punishing the wealthy by charging them more through an income tax. Critics say that VAT place an undue economic burden on the lower income or taxpayers that is based on consumption rather than income. In contrast to a progressive income tax, which levies more taxes on the wealthy, VAT is charged equally every purchase. An airport tax is a tax levied on passengers for passing through an airport. The tax is generally imposed for the use of the airport and is one of a number of taxes that are typically included in the price of an airline ticket. Revenue from airport taxes is used for facility maintenance. Airport taxes are charged to fund the construction, maintenance, and administration of airports and airway system. For this reason, the Internal Revenue Service, or IRS, describes these taxes as user fees because the funds generated do not flow back to the general treasury. Often, the bulk of the fee is called the landing fee, paid by the aircraft, and transferred to the customer via the price of the traveler's online ticket. Value-added tax, or VAT, charged to clients in the tourism industry, especially to the foreign tourists. In the tourism industry, not only one does need to look at the cost of putting together the trip, where they may be different VAT treatments. VAT treatments for using company vehicle. But things get even further complicated than this, especially if you have foreign tourists in your company. To add another complexity, in the travel and tourism industry, many of the goods and services supplied by the service providers are made available through local entrepreneurs. That is such, local entrepreneurs act as agent under common law in representing principal that supplies the goods and services. Notwithstanding this, local entrepreneurs may also act as principals. For example, the purchase and resale of tour packages. VAT is treated differently. The above just slightly touches on some of the issues to consider when putting together itinerary and how to calculate the correct VAT. If you charge VAT on items that you shouldn't, it will make you more expensive than your competitors who are treating it correctly. If you are not charging VAT on items you should, then SARS could levy on 50% additional without you being able to claim it back from client. VAT is thus an area that you need to read up on and ensure that your bookkeeper or accountant is up to date. Generally, an amount included in your income is taxable unless it is specifically exempted by law. Income that is taxable must be reported on your return and is subject to tax. Income tax that is non-taxable may have to be shown on your return, but it's not taxable.
Let us now proceed with the importance of taxation. Taxes are crucial because governments collect this money and use it to finance social projects. Without taxes, government's contribution to the health sector would be impossible. Taxes go to the funding of health services such as social health care, medical research, social security, and others. Next, government put a lot of importance in the development of human capital, and education is central in this development. Money from taxes channeled to funding, furnishing, and maintaining the public education system. Lastly, in tourism. Tourism is very sensitive when it comes to taxes. However, they cannot accept from them since it is a significant source of revenue for the budget.
And that's all for this video. We hope you learned something about taxation law. Well, see you in our next video. Thank you so much for listening.